Hello, everyone. It's Norman Riley here with the post-match Q&A. Just absolutely and utterly staggered by what we've just seen. I genuinely cannot believe that. At the minute, it looks like, well, we've got a few people coming online now. Get in, that's what we want. What a time to be alive. I'm still in a state of shock.
Feels like a win, Norman.
That last 4 minutes was one of the maddest times I've ever been a Newcastle fan. I mean, genuinely. Last 4 minutes was. I genuinely cannot recall like seeing anything like that. It was weird because it was like a kind of training game, right? And it felt like a training match, like for most of the game, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. Like, I mean, I thought Liverpool, like, they dominated in terms of the chances they created, but they were never like anything special. You know, they looked a bit nervous, right? Don't get me wrong, they did create a lot of chances, but to me, they looked a bit nervous, and it still felt like a really low energy game. But I even thought, even though it was 1-0 all the way through, 1-0, I just expected them to get a second goal at some point, and it never came. But I must say, I never ever thought that we were going to score, and there it is, mate. So we've got a first comment coming in from Bradley Hall. Mark, I'll let you take this, mate. Credit to Steve Bruce. I thought we played quite well. Take it away, mate. Take it away. I'm having a beer, by the way, listeners, because of yours. Wow.
You know what? Credit the whole lot. Credit the team for battling right at the end. We were still in the game. That's the only thing I was thinking towards the end. I was thinking it didn't really feel like a great game, as you said, Norm. It was a typical end of season game without it being the end of the season, if you know what I mean. It was like, we're safe. Liverpool have done what they need to do. That's how it felt, the general game, even though, you know, the defences were all over the place. There was chances in the game. Obviously, Liverpool had the vast majority, but yes, credit Bruce. Sometimes you can look at it from a point of view of the substitutes are obvious, because ultimately the best two players, as far as I'm concerned, is Wilson and Willock. So you've got to put on your best players. And obviously St. Maxim's already on. So yes, credit. He brought them on at the right time. I don't think we played particularly well. I just think it was a game that we're kept in it all the way through. And I'm just so pleased that I'm not coming on this, you know, Q&A with you now, Norman, just thinking, all right, it's another game we've lost, it, because I'm absolutely delighted, to be honest with you, because justice was done, you know, in regards to the VAR decision. It's a ridiculous rule, and I don't know whether I'm right in thinking that it's going to be ruled out next season, that rule. I could be wrong, but, you know, but yeah, credit them all. The players stayed in the game till the end, and yes, I will listen back to Steve Bruce now, and hopefully his after-match interview is a lot more diplomatic than the ones that have been before, where he's quick to sort of pick people out for being slightly negative about it, you know.
I'd like to see that, but ultimately it's one of those where you think, well, if he's going to gloat, then gloat away. Gloat after this, you know, this is a game too. If you're going to gloat, then, you know, we've just got to point away to the champions. Yeah. And look, Liverpool are nowhere near the force that they were. I mean, defensively, they were absolutely shambolic. Both sides, I thought, were very, very open. It's incredible that there were only 2 goals scored. I mean, at half-time, you could have been looking at it being like 7-3 to Liverpool. It was that open. And I thought in the second half, it was quite obvious what we needed to do was basically get Wilson on, because Joe Linton was having an absolutely, like, you know, terrible game, I thought. And to be fair, you know, that's the decision he took. He took Joe Linton off, and I don't necessarily think we ended up like automatically playing better. But obviously, what you saw was a threat every time, you know, we did get the ball forward because of Wilson's intelligence, his ability to run off the ball, his pace, his strength. And I think we've got a comment there from Austin saying Wilson got screwed. I mean, ultimately, that decision, I think on BT they said it's the right decision because it's hit his arm, but it's like, how way? You know, this is the thing with VAR. I mean, you look at like sort of 20 minutes earlier in the game, and Liverpool basically got 2 corners because they were allowed to keep playing when they were clearly offside. Mania, for example, ran through. Dubravka pulls off a save. Milner follows up the shot, it deflects to get a corner. Mania was offside, so ultimately, if you look at it like this, if VAR was doing its job and it had picked up on that corner would never happened. Or alternatively, if Manny had scored, i.e. Dubravka let it in, it would have been disallowed for offside. It's so incredibly inconsistent. And I think I don't think we can deny that the last few weeks, Burnley, West Ham, Spurs, what we can't deny is there's clearly been a turnaround in terms of the spirit in that camp, right? You think of the big fallout, the one that Craig Hope publicised, and things were looking they're looking terrible. You know, Matt Ritchie out of the squad for calling him a coward, and all of a sudden Ritchie's back in the team. We're picking up results, and we're equalising at the death against Spurs and against Liverpool. You know, that to me suggests that there is a determination there. And for Wilson's goal to be disallowed as well at that stage of the game, the impact that could have had on players. I mean, you would have just thought, that's it. That's it. But they didn't. They went again. And look, yes, Liverpool's nerves played into it, but ultimately Newcastle's players played on that. And Willock was, he'd had a header a couple of minutes earlier. He's a wonderful player. And what I found really interesting actually was his celebration at the end. On the past couple of podcasts I've said, would Willock want to sign for Newcastle, given that he's a young player who wants to develop his career? And is he thinking that Steve Bruce isn't the man to do that, perhaps? Yet he went over to Bruce and gave him a massive hug at the end. So who knows? Neil there saying Dubravka saves our horses again. Let's hope Fat Man buys Willock as a lad's a star. I don't know, Mark, any comments on that, mate?
Against Liverpool in that strike force, you're always going to have a lot of chances against you. That's the story of Newcastle, though, Neil. We are always going to concede possession a lot, give away a lot of chances. Christ, how many times did we give the ball away in dangerous areas? Let's be honest, on chances we should have been out of sight. So yes, Dubravka has saved our horses again. But again, you've got to look at the last 5 minutes. I was looking at the clock and thinking, we're still in this game. And going back to Steve Bruce, a lot of the times under Rafa, we used to give Rafa credit because we were always in a game going into the closing minutes. And especially, as you rightly said, Norman, the last couple of weeks, since the kick-off with Matt Ritchie, we do look at a more sort of passionate side. It's an overused word, passion in football, but we look like we've got something about it at the minute. And yes, it's not spectacular. We could pick apart certain performances. I thought Shelvey was non-existent again. Longstaff was in and out of the game, giving the ball away. Almiron wasn't really a threat. Joe Linton was just Joe Linton. And you look at St. Maximum. He looks very, very dangerous. There's a lot of tricks, but sometimes you look at his end product and it's just, for me, it's still not there. But then you look at it from a point of view going, well, he was one of our major outlets. Look, regarding Willock, it's an interesting one about Willock because we were led to believe that Bruce has been chasing Willock for 3 or 4 transfer windows, according to Luke Edwards on a podcast a couple of months ago. So if he's his number one target, you would think that he would play him. But then you can't knock it because he's come on, he's made an impact yet again in a game and scored a vital goal. I love the lad, mate. I really do. If we can get 4 or 5 years, if we sign him and get 4 or 5 years out of him and build a team around the likes of him and admit that the likes of Shelvey is not working, then yes, it's a good positive to come from a pretty poor season overall. Him and Wilson.
I know, absolutely. I think Willock, the fact that he's brought these goals is totally unexpected. And again, you know what, I'm going to have to credit Bruce here because ultimately that was a very, very good signing to make during the winter, right? He's proven it. I mean, what's that, 4 goals now? He's been absolutely superb. And the lift that he seems to give the team when he comes on, you can't quantify it, right? And I think as well, I just can't get my head around the fact that we've got 8 points on these last 4 games. I never expected this. This is like, it's almost like 4 games back. I was sure, and I'm sure most people like watching this were the same. We were dead set, right? We were dead set for relegation. And to pull those 8 points out, look, you look at all four performances, right? And they've been good aspects of them. There've been terrible parts of them as well. But ultimately, like, it's the points and it's the accumulation of points, right? Especially this. But today, that for me, as I say, like there were some bad performances. Like I thought, Shelvey was atrocious. I'll go a little bit easier on Longstaff because I think he just has to do so much running. But I think Almiron looks a little bit lost in that position when he's got kind of Maximan playing through the centre. It's almost like you're wasting a player, really. So, there were a few issues, but ultimately the little surprises of what have given me a lot of pleasure. As I say, I think Murphy and Richie have been really good. I mean, Richie put the ball in, right, for the equaliser.
Yeah.
Richie's on ball at the box. I think Gale maybe won the knockdown and or won it, and it went down to Wigan and he scored. So, there are positives, and right now, immediately post-match, it's kind of difficult to look at any of the negatives too in depth, because you've got to be buzzing. We've got apple pie and custard's got to start. Apple pie and custard's got to start with Willock. Look, unfortunately, he's not going to be available against Arsenal right in the next match. But Wilson, I think I think ultimately you've got to have Wilson up there with Maximan and Almiron, right?
I was going to say, before the start of the game, Jermaine Jean has said something on the lines of he's going to keep his players back for the games against, keep Wilson back for the games against Sheffield United and Fulham. And I was a little bit like, why? Why does he want to wait 4 games to play? I don't get that. Every game's winnable, and Liverpool have been shocking at home. Liverpool aren't the Liverpool of last season. There's something not right there. Good friend of mine's a Liverpool supporter. I work with him, and he texted me after the game, says justice was done, mate. Well done. The note's not right. The thing about Shelby, though, just going back to Shelby playing him centre half, it's like, I mean, Fabinho can do it. It's at Liverpool because he's an absolute fantastic distributor of the ball. Shelby used to be, but when he went to centre half, I think everyone was thinking, what the hell is happening here? But you know what? I think you're right, Norm. It's a little bit like you mentioned that Tottenham when we drew the week late. It reminds me of a bit smash and grab at the start of the season when we got that penalty down at Tottenham. And it was like, how the hell have we got away with that? And I didn't celebrate. I just thought we didn't deserve a thing from that game. But today, you can genuinely see, especially after the week in football, with the Merseyside Reds being who they are trying to do in this Super League. Sod them, mate. I'm ecstatic. I'm absolutely ecstatic. And it's the most pleased I've been over a result this season. Possibly apart from Everton, because that was a little bit, wow. Is this the way we're going to set up and play now? But yeah, the comments coming in. Murphy was decent. I think he's really coming to his own, and it'll be hard to get him out of the team now. Where at the start of the season, no one probably would have thought he'd be on his way.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just seen a picture pop up there, and on the previous comment about the disturbed about the players running at Bruce. Look, for that moment, I think we should just accept it. I still don't want Steve Bruce as the manager. He's not the man to take us forward. But if we just narrow it right down to today and right now, let's take that result against the champions of the league, against the former European champions. Let's just take it for what it is. It's been a very, very positive couple of weeks for Newcastle. Obviously, with the pledge scheme happening now, that's gaining momentum. Jake Humphrey has retweeted today. He's talked about it on his show. I thought to myself, that's going to be the highlight of our day. But no, the day is getting better, mate, and I might go out and get pissed now.
I think that's a fair idea. I'm straight out on the drink after this as well, so happy days. But I think it's just brilliant that we have taken a point off, one of the European Super League. One of the European Super League. What would you call them, mate? Malcontents, right? Snaids, I think. And that's a better word. That's a better word. I've got a comment here. We argued recently about 5-3-2 against 4-4-2, Norman. I know you're that type of person, but I went for a slide told you. So it would have definitely been me saying go 4-4-2. So if you want to say I told you so, you can tell me, mate. I can cope with it. I'm thick-skinned. You know what? I've got opinions, and we've all got those, haven't we? But there you go. Hey, tell you what, I love to be proven wrong when my opinion is about Newcastle United. If it's a negative opinion about Newcastle and I'm proven wrong, I'm happy, and I couldn't be happier today. Like, regardless of the whole performance, as I say, there were aspects of it that were disconcerting, but at the same time, we've got like an injury time equaliser. After having an injury time goal wrongly disallowed, in my opinion, we've still got an equaliser, and it's a reason to celebrate. And as you say, look, I don't think Steve Bruce is a long-term answer. He never will be. He's never been necessarily the long-term answer at any club he's been at. He's at an age now where he's probably going to, be thinking about retiring in the next few years, really, or he's not going to get a job as high profile as this. No, I don't think he'll take it forward. But ultimately, you've got to take each game, under Mike Ashley, as a Newcastle fan, in the context of that particular game. And the last 4 games have been enjoyable. Like, they have been in the sense that we haven't lost, and we've picked up like a last minute point against Spurs. We've beaten 2 other teams. You've got to enjoy that particular moment, and this is one of those moments, right, that you just enjoy. Let me see if I can get some more comments up in here, because there's quite a quite a few coming in. Shelby, what we got here? Shelby slugging about once again. They call him a deep playmaker. But was that he made a play. He just gets the ball and hoofs it to Timbuktu. Interesting that Shelby ended up finishing at centre half, right?
Well, this is what I'm saying. Fabinho was playing centre half for Liverpool because they've got an injury crisis. But when he gets the ball, he can distribute it and he looks like a decent player in control. He's just moved 20 yards back to still play his game. With Shelby, he ended up centre half and I just thought, what the hell? But look, when that goal went in, he was at the other side of the pitch. They were all pressing. I'm not a fan of Shelby. I think when you look at Shelby's 5 year at Newcastle, he hasn't improved. And I always look at a footballer, what are they like now compared to what they were when they signed? And Shelby hasn't progressed. He's obviously a Bruce favourite. There is stories that he didn't like Rafa. Bruce obviously liked to get that sort of player on side. Shelby for me has done his bit for Newcastle now, and it's time to move on without him, in my opinion.
I agree.
To Timbuktu.
Getting a contract for a football club in Mali. Yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, I just think that whilst Willock's on the bench and Shelby's in the team, that to me doesn't make any sense. And I look, obviously you can argue that they're different types of players, but they're both centre midfielders ultimately. And I think that Willock, regardless of the formation being played, will always offer more than Shelby will in a centre midfield run. And the thing is, I don't think anyone can deny that Shelby's a technically gifted player, but for me, it's the lack of pace, right? He's absolutely so slow that in order to make up for that lack of pace, you have to be like a really incredible footballer. You know, you get some footballers who get a bit older, they completely lose that pace, but it doesn't matter because they're so technically good and they just know how to use the energy. Shelby, unfortunately, yes, he's technically good, but he's not good enough, I think, to kind of make up for that lack of pace. And that pace now is really important in the Premier League, right? I mean, this is another thing with Willock, right? Willock he's an exceptionally quick midfielder, isn't he? Like, it's something that surprised me. I think I said on a podcast the other week that I haven't seen a midfielder at Newcastle as quick as that. Centre midfielder, anyways, since Kieran Dyer, basically.
Oh wow, well, that was a blast from the past. He's been talking about Newcastle recently as well, hasn't he? Quite positive about the supporters as well. So it makes a nice change.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've got Chris Wallace there getting best Willock cans. I mean, that's it, isn't it? I'll be sinking the cans in the next sort of 20 minutes, although I'm on a bottle at the minute, like, forgive us.
I'm gonna knock on Chris Wallace and get his right door, because last time I went to his house for a couple of cans, I got the wrong house and some woman come out and I'd 90 and went, hello. I went, Chris not live here? Nope.
Oh, well, there you go, mate.
And I didn't stay. I went to Chris's.
Oh, look at that. Apparently I was right, so happy days, and I appreciate the honesty, and I'll take that with us and celebrate it. Celebrate the fact that I was obviously right. I'll tell you what, it's interesting you mentioned Murphy there. He's out of contract at the end of the season, right?
He is. Give him a new one. Give him a new one. He's earned it. There's a couple of players who haven't earned new contracts and they've got them. But yeah, give Murphy a new contract. He's handy to have around. He can play. He's versatile. He can play a number of positions. He's dangerous. He's probably better than other players in that position. So you get rid of the ones who are clearly worse, if that's your motto to go by. But yes, he deserves a contract based on this season.
I agree with you, mate. And we'll maybe talk about it briefly before we see Tarot, everyone, in terms of Fede Fernandez as well. But good question here from John Allison. Do you credit the results to team effort and management tactics? I mean, personally, look, as critical as I've been of Bruce, and as wrong as I thought he got it today initially, by the end of the game, we got a point away at Liverpool, you know. So ultimately, I can't come in and say he got it wrong today because we got a point away at Liverpool. So there's a little bit of tactics is a difficult one because it depends how you perceive tactics, right? Tactics for me is I look at that Newcastle performance today, and we don't look like a kind of side that really like necessarily focuses on, you know, free kicks, corners, playing the ball out from the back. There's a lot of it just kind of on a wing and a prayer, right? It's that's how we kind of play. You very much get the impression that it's like have a kick a boot, lads, and then we'll meet up on Saturday and play the match, right? So for me, there's not much in the way of tactics. But today, I thought in-game management-wise, he realised that there was a problem, that it wasn't working with Joe Linton. He brought Wilson on, he changed the formation, and we got a point. So there's a little, you know, that in-game management today was better than it has been. But ultimately, I think team effort, the spirit is there right now. And I think, again, you know, you bring it back to Richie coming back into the team. And I just alluded to him before, Ferrier Fernandez, I think, there's another player out of contract. Whilst Bruce is at Newcastle, whilst we've got Mike Ashley, Ferrier Fernandez for me is another player that I'd like to see kept on because I think he performs a really important role.
I agree. For some reason, he got injured after the Sheffield United game, or did he get dropped? I can't recall what the media were trying to portray that. It took him a while to get in there. But he for me is our most consistent centre half. Yes, he makes mistakes, but they all do. They're all not top class. They're all decent at what they do. But yeah, for me, you would definitely give him at least a year. Just going back to team effort and management tactics, Norman. Today, I've been reminded of that 2-1 win at Anfield back in 1988. We got relegated that season, but if you watch highlights of that game, we get absolutely battered from the first to the last minute. But we score a breakaway goal and we score a penalty at the cop end with 10 minutes to go. And if you watch that game, if the whole players give more than 100%, 4 of them are lying down in our own 18-yard box at one point. It's hilarious to see. And there's a famous picture taken of it because they're giving everything. Now, I wouldn't say I don't want to sound melodramatic here, but I think based on the limitations of this team, that probably was everything we give today. But it includes too many mistakes. It includes too many opportunities given to the opponent. But to answer John's question, as I said earlier, credit the tactics, whatever they were. But yes, definitely credit them in-game management, and certainly credit the team effort.
Good question here from Neil. Do you reckon the actions of the top 6 90 teams could have a positive effect on the takeover saga? Mate, you know what? I wouldn't have a clue, Mark. You might have more of a thought on that than me, but I just genuinely don't have a clue, mate. You cannot read anything from like the Premier League and how it acts.
I think it's a great question. It's obviously just open for interpretation, isn't it? I mean, who do you listen to? Who do you want to believe? What do you believe, or do you just switch off? I'll be perfectly honest with you, Neil. I've sort of switched off from takeover talk for probably 6 or 7 months now. I hear a lot. Obviously, I'm in a privileged position to be on the trust. You can't listen. You can't go to Twitter and get the information if you want that information. But regards the actions of the top 6 90 teams, it possibly could, but there's a long way to go. I think the key thing for me is arbitration. They've got to win that, and then it's the next step after that, isn't it, for them to get through the owners and directors test. Who knows, mate? There's a lot of unanswered questions out there, and we're certainly not the people to answer them for you, Neil. Sorry, exactly. Mate.
We'll focus on the game we've just watched, and I think this is a really interesting point, Joseph Gardner. Anyone else somewhat inspired with someone like Willock stepping up when Miggy and ASM being relatively shut down by LFC today? I'll tie that into get what you're saying about not lumping on Bruce, but there's a little bit of what could have been if he'd started with Wilson and Willock. That Liverpool side are now special, as others have shown. You can tie them both in because there is an argument here. Like, look, I look at those players, right? Willock, Maximan, Almiron, Wilson. Right there, I mean there's 4 really good players. There's talent there, right? I would even throw Sean Longstaff in that. I would, because I still think there's an excellent player in there with a Reed coaching behind him. They're already sure of the kind of micro management and micro coaching that he might need to fulfill his potential. And I do think that as good of a point as it was today, ultimately we're still on what I think 37 points or 36 points we've got or whatever
36,
it is.
36, yeah.
36, right? It's a poor season ultimately. If we get and win the last 5 games, it will turn out to be an incredible season, but that's not going to happen, right? I doubt it. So I think that squad with the right man in charge is capable. It will be capable of having at least 10 to 12 more points on the board, I think. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm not lumping on Bruce today because I'm just buzzing that we've got this point and the way that we've achieved it. And as I say, I've got to be fair to him in the sense that we have got under great amounts of pressure. We've got 8 points from 12 games. But do I think the squad is capable of more than what it's achieved? Of course I do. I don't know about you, Mark. I mean, and I do believe that Liverpool were there for the taking as well in many respects because, they're absolutely they're a shambles. I mean, they're a shambles at the back.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think he's made a good point. For me, you pick your strongest team in the best positions. But the problem is, Norman, we're going in at the end of the season with 5 games to go. We still don't know what the strongest lineup is. We know who the best players are, but as a lineup, as tactically, we still don't know. But the thing is, this could go either way. Bruce will definitely manage us next season. That goes without a start, because the takeover won't happen, in my opinion. If it is going to happen, it won't happen before the start of next season. So Bruce is definitely going to be the manager next season. He needs a good end. He needs to raise optimism. He needs to get people enthusiastic about going at the ground again. I've paid for next season. I've got no interest in going in because I would be a hypocrite. I don't back Steve Bruce, and I certainly don't back Mike Ashley. However, we're all we're all fickle. If we have a good end of the season, and the way we've been playing over the 4 games continues into the next 5, and we'll have a decent enough summer, you might go, you know what, stop being an arsehole, Mark, get your selling and do what you used to do and enjoy the games.
Look, I mean, I think it's kind of giving those players the freedom to kind of express themselves and actually allowing them to press and to push, because today, this is the other thing, I still thought that we were quite static against Liverpool. You look at the possession in the first half, you look at the chances they created. That defence, as I say, was a bag of nerves, and we didn't really press them. And I just think those players that we've got are capable of so much more. And I actually think that there is the basis of a really good team there with the right coaching behind it. And I look at another player, it's Martin Dubravka, right? I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal today. Dubravka was phenomenal. So there are 5 or 6 players there who could take this team to, I believe, quite comfortably mid-table. So, when we do a review at the end of the season, we'll kind of talk about the season as a whole, rather than just these last 4 games that we've enjoyed on many levels. And I think you're right, Bruce is going to be for next season. So, as you say, it is important that we don't finish this season like we did last. Just that kind of collapse once we hit the sort of 40-point mark. That was just it. If we can pick up 3 wins between now and the end of the season, if we beat Sheffield United and Fulham the last 2 games of the season, it does change things, right? It does give people that little bit more to hang on to when, the maybe didn't want Bruce in charge, but he's here, and that'll give it a bit more of a positive spin, right?
It absolutely, Norman. You look at it from a stats perception. I was quick enough, and I was sort of doing a little bit of a running commentary, 2 wins in 15, 2 wins in 17, 2 wins in 20, 2 wins in 20. And then you've got people who turn around and go, it's 1 defeat in 8. That's right. It's 1 defeat in 8. It's turned around. We've just got to keep it going. And, you look at the next fixture, it's Arsenal, isn't it, next weekend? So Arsenal, it's a winnable game. And let's just see where we go. And like you say, Norm, if we have a good end of the season, and we're out of sight. I mean, at the minute, we're 9 points ahead of Fulham. We won't go down. It's as simple as that. We're 9 points ahead. But if we were, say, 12, 15 points ahead of relegation, you could turn around and say that was quite a relatively successful season. Mm-hmm. But Bruce is basing his success, and whether he's taken us forward, and rightly so, by the way, on whether we've done better than last season from a points perspective, because he's been given money and he's bought players who he apparently wanted. So I like the fact that Bruce has now brought that onto the table, because for a while he didn't. It was sort of a case of, Ashley just wants us to keep up. Well, now he's actually admitted, no, we need to do better than last season. I'll credit him for that, because that's, if you set your own standards and your own benchmarks to do stuff, follow it through. Don't then turn around and blame X, Y, and Z, the supporters or journalists or players not performing. We're all in it together, but I'm just liking Newcastle at the moment again, and it's a nice feeling. And like I said at the start of the show, Norm, today feels like a win, and I will over celebrate it, because I think justice was done.
Well, I tell you what, we're coming up the half-hour mark, so what we'll allow you to do, mate, is we'll allow you to go and celebrate it. Viewers, massive thanks for tuning in. What we want to see is next week, Willock starting, Wilson starting, and just really gun for it, because Arsenal are shocking at the back. And those Newcastle players, if the mentality's right, if the setup's right at the start of that match, there's no reason why we can't beat Arsenal. And I think that would just be a huge, huge win and give everyone a massive lift. And as you say, let's just, in the context of it, let's just enjoy the fact that regardless of everything that's gone on, right now, I'm going to celebrate the fact that we've scored an injury time equaliser against Liverpool on their patch.
Imagine we were there. That's the sickening thing, isn't it?
Wouldn't be able to see, no, mate. I'd be putting whiskey in my eyeballs.
I'd be lifted for invading the pitch, mate. But happy days, Norman. Happy days.
There you go. Thanks, viewers. Really appreciate it. The free podcast will be getting recorded tomorrow and released as per usual on YouTube and all your podcast channels. Appreciate you tuning into this and hope to see you again soon. Cheers.